What is the absolute worst game you ever played? Maybe you thought of a game that was disappointing, or maybe you thought of a game that is filled with bugs and glitches. Although a few games I personally don't really like came to mind, I decided to find the definitive answer. I found a list of the top 100 lowest rated games on Steam, and I'm going to play them all to find out which game I personally think is the worst. Now, let's spin the wheel and get ready to go dumpster diving. Grand Ages Medieval? Okay, let's get right into it. If you want the privilege of playing Grand Ages Medieval, you first have to go through the Calypso launcher. Here we get a whole bunch of advertisements for very interesting games like Dungeons 4 and Commandos Origins, since the $20 I spent on this game apparently wasn't good enough. After getting jump scared by a constipated man on the loading screen, we get the option to create our profile. There's a ton of different characters to choose from here, but none of them really stick out as leadership material for me. Oh. Hello there, handsome. Look at this lad. He has the armor. He has the eyes of a traumatized veteran. Yes, this is a man I would follow into battle. Let's see what you got for me, game. Alright, well I guess I'm not playing as the guy I made earlier. Instead I'm playing as this nerd, Leon Vasilius. At least I get to make my own crest. It has to be something heroic, something that strikes sheer terror into the hearts of my enemies. Alex the Lion. Perfect. Our first real task here is to establish a trade route with the nearby town of Budapest. Huh. Now, I've never been to the real Budapest, but something tells me that it doesn't have a giant fart cloud surrounding it. Talking to the mayor of Budapest, I found out that if you want to make a trade agreement with a town, you first have to give them something in exchange, like money. I don't know why I have to be the one to pay when both of our towns will prosper from a trade route, but fine. After that, it's time for the actual trade. When you look at a town, you get a giant list of every single detail about it. You can see what buildings are in the town, what commodities it produces, their stockpiles, how many commodities they consume, and the average going price for each commodity. The less of a commodity there is, the more it's worth, so you want to make just enough to get by without oversaturating your market. Trying to buy commodities in this game is a pain, since it's difficult trying to buy an exact amount of something. The good news is that you can allow the traders to automatically buy however much of each commodity they want. Then all you have to do is plan out the traders' route and wait for the money to roll in. Eventually. Any day now. Well, after that riveting gameplay, I then had to sit through a 4.5 minute long history lesson. It basically boils down to an absolutely horrifying avatar telling me, your name is Leon and you need to go rule a town or something. And as it turns out, ruling a town's pretty easy. By using a settler, you can choose an area on the map to found a town. As you walk around, you can see what commodities your town can produce depending on where you settle. For example, if you settle near mineral deposits, then you can produce commodities that require you to mine, like coal. You then get to choose 5 commodities that your town produces. From there, you can basically just settle more towns, build more roads, and find more neighbors to trade with. Honestly, the game was really fun at first, but eventually when you need to start relying on the trade, it just ruined any enjoyment I had. In this game, the commodities you make serve a purpose. Your citizens need food to survive, you need crafting materials to make buildings and roads, etc. Because of this, when you establish a new town, you need your traders to bring food and building materials so your workers can do their jobs. However, for some reason, my traders would never bring enough of the commodities that my other towns needed to survive. For example, if my town needed 10 bricks for a building and my trader was at my other town that had 1,000 bricks, they would sometimes just ignore the request entirely. And it's not like it was a matter of space, since my traders would oftentimes enter and leave a town without ever buying anything, even though they totally had the room. Then, when my traders finally decided to do their jobs, they constantly bought commodities and sold them at a lower price than what they bought them for. I tried changing what routes they went on, I tried changing what types of trades they did, I even tried changing how much cargo space they had, and nothing worked. And even after upgrading the roads so my traders could travel faster, I still often lost more money than I made, since it would take months for my traders to make one sale. After spending a few hours in the main campaign and still not getting past the tutorial, I decided to try out a custom game instead. I skewed the game heavily in my favor by shrinking the game area and getting rid of all my opponents except for one before starting my second empire. I immediately made a mistake when I sent one of my settlers south over the mountain range to found Bolzano. I didn't realize that I can't make a road through the mountains, so these guys will be stranded with no food or shelter until the end of time. For everyone else though, my kingdom was starting to prosper. I established a ton of roads, I was starting to trade with my neighbors, and I was doing pretty good. It was about here that I decided that I was going to quickly set up my army to invade my rival kingdom and see how fast I could win. Apparently that's not allowed. When you start off the game, your empire is small since you barely own any land. As you build cities and add more citizens, your influence around the area slowly grows. At certain checkpoints, you get new titles and you get experience points that you can spend on upgrades for your empire. What the game doesn't tell you is that you also have a sort of invisible barrier around your empire that only grows when it grows. So if you want to actually interact with the other people in the game, you just have to sit around and wait for your towns to grow first. This feels like a really weird way to pad for time in a game that encourages exploration and interaction with your neighbors. Even when I was able to fight people, the combat in this game isn't exactly impressive. Combat pretty much boils down to picking your army, sending them to the enemy, and hoping that your army wins. There's no real way to know how good or bad your army is doing except for a single vague sentence about the battle and watching how fast your troops die. According to the barracks, different army types are supposed to be more effective against different kinds of troops, like spearmen doing better against cavalry. In reality, it felt like no matter what I used, the enemy always perfectly countered me. You also don't know the strength of your enemy until you send your own army out to fight him, which makes fighting feel less strategic and more luck-based. For example, I trained 2 troops here, which the game warned me was too much. Then, these bears spawned out of nowhere and started attacking all of my traders. But when I sent my army to fight the bears, they kept losing. First, the game told me that I had too strong of an army, then they get destroyed by bears? Does my army suck? Am I just fighting an army of cocaine bears? What gives? All the complaints for this game pretty much boil down to the fact that the gameplay is repetitive and that there's better alternatives out there. And to be honest, I agree 100%. In the beginning of the campaign, I had a lot of fun laying out the foundation of my empire and learning the best trade routes and commodities to produce. But just like an Empire of Sin, after the campaign ends and you're on your own, it's just extremely repetitive. I think there's a lot of cool ideas here, but I don't think there's anything the game does better than other games in the genre like Civilization. Despite all of this, Grand Ages Medieval is still one of the better games I played so far, but I don't think it's the best. Anyway, I hope to see you all again next time. Peace out.